So Beginners, which is sort of indie-spirited deadpan rom-non-com, I suppose, from the guy who directed Thumbsucker. And the best way of describing it is that it's intelligent, sensitive and quirky filmmaking, and possibly patience-testingly so in all those ways. So Ewan McGregor is this inward-looking sort of arty type who draws cartoons about the evolution of sadness for a living, but he's got one of those jobs in which you can do a lot of sitting around not doing very much and still appear to get paid. He's a designer and he's meant to be designing the album cover for a rock band who just want a portrait, but he's coming up with all these sort of funky, strange, offbeat, ennui-inflected cartoons, which they're not interested in. We have a flashback. At the beginning of the movie, we see him and the death of his father, played by Christopher Plummer. And the movie then goes back to his relationship with his father, who, after the death of his mother, reveals that for his whole life he's been gay, and now that his wife has departed, he wants to live his life as a gay man. So Ewan McGregor's character is, suddenly caught, unawares by this side of his father's character, but in the nature of the movie, which is very open-minded and very broad-minded about all of its characters, finds this new chapter in the relationship between Ewan McGregor and Christopher Plummer, and Ewan McGregor clearly needs someone to love who will appear later on in the form of Melanie Laurent. Meantime, here's a conversation between Christopher Plummer and Ewan McGregor.
Well, maybe you should take out a personal ad, where you can explain your situation.
My situation?
Yeah. I mean, you want to be in a relationship and you can't stand one.
That's your fatherly advice, personal ads.
Well, a lot of people use them. I did.
What?
If Andy wasn't going to be monogamous, why should I be?
Now, when I saw this, I saw it on Monday of this week, and afterwards I was the way the national press shows work is that a whole group of us go from one screening to the next, watching all the week's releases. And afterwards, sitting down to The Violent Kind, which is also out this week, I very briefly had a conversation with with a national press critic who said, well, that was a naught-star movie. And I said, oh, come on, you're kidding. He went, no, it was I just hated it, really genuinely hated it. And I was thinking about this, about why somebody would take, I haven't read his review, I don't know whether that actually, whether he reconsidered, but wondering why somebody would take against the movie so much. And I think in the end it comes down to this. There are a number of good points about it. The good points are that it is extremely even-handed about its characters. I mean, it doesn't matter whether somebody is old or young or male or female or gay or straight. It's very even-handed, and it has a real, I think, authenticity in its even-handedness. It also has a non-linear structure, which is that it jumps back between the time that he's with his father, the time that he and Melanie Laurent are having this relationship playing out, and it attempts to tell its story in a way which it's got a voiceover, which makes it very literary in some ways. In fact, funnily enough, at one point I was reminded of, you remember Bill Forsyth made a movie called Being Human, and actually you may not remember it, because although it cost a lot of money, but nobody went to see it.
That's why I don't remember.
And Bill Forsyth said of it, in the end, you know what I should have done? I should have just written a poem. And there's a little bit of that about Beginners. It has that feeling that it's literary, that in fact, it's poetic in a way that maybe is not profoundly cinematic, but I don't know, maybe it's adventurous with a cinematic form. It also has a brace of very good performances. Ewan McGregor, who, let's face it, has been a little bit up and down recently, is actually in very good form, and Christopher Plummer is, really charming. He pitches that performance just right. I mean, he's an older guy who's been married the whole of his life, now embracing, this new, out gay lifestyle, and doing it in a way which is completely convincing and completely natural. The downside of the movie is that the characters are in many ways quite annoying. Partly because they're kooky, and I'm bad with kooky. And remember Zooey Deschanel in what is it called, 150 Days of Summer. If you thought Zooey Deschanel was kooky in that movie, well, believe me, she's like nil on the kooky factor in comparison with the relationship that Ewan McGregor and Melanie Laurent have. They have one of those relationships. It's beset all the time by the possibility of sadness. I mean, literally, the appearance of a bread roll can turn them from laughing into being sad. But because they're kooky, they do a lot of things, like they do a lot of out of context piggybacking. And they do, some sort of sudden spontaneous roller skating through incongruous, in that way that people, when they're young and in love, are meant to do. Now, does anyone actually do that? When you were young and in love,
yes.
Did you ever do out of context piggybacking or roller skating because you were young and in love?
I can't quite remember now. I might have done. I might have thought about it.
Yeah, that's different, but not actually doing it, okay? So there's an awful lot of doing that. When they first meet, for example, it said
I did some leapfrogging once.
Did you?
Yes.
That's a little bit kooky.
Well, I was young. That's what you do.
That was in the 1950s, wasn't it? What you get with this is when they first meet, they meet at a fancy dress party. He's dressed as Freud, you see. So it's like, and she finds that quirky. Whereas I would have just thought, I'm sorry, I find that slightly slappable. That's the first problem. The second problem is that there is this thing, which is these are people that don't appear to have any major financial worries. I mean, she spends her life in hotels, going from one job that she doesn't appear to be doing, another job she doesn't. He appears to sit at his desk a long time thinking about the evolution of sadness. All this stuff happens. Nobody ever worries about bills, and I'm sorry, that's always a kind of material thing to me. It's like when I watch that Catherine Breillat movie Romance. It's like all these people go, oh, life is so terrible. You go, look at the size of your apartment. It's really good. You got a cleaner in. It's white. Stop moaning all the time. That movie Archipelago. You ever see that? All those people on Tresco. Oh, life. They're not French, but I'm just doing it in that. So you're in Tresco. The scenery is really wonderful. So that is a problem. There are shades of Igby Goes Down in its indie spiritedness, but at least Igby Goes Down was in some ways really sort of scabrously unpleasant and, had a really dark side to it. This doesn't. So both the good and the bad of it is that it has an open mind. It has a generous open heart. It's very even-handed with its characters, and the characters are very well played by Melanie Ron, by Christopher Plummer, by Ewan McGregor, and it is adventurous in its format. The problem is the characters that are being played, you might well feel that you want to go, oh, for heaven's sake, stop complaining, get your lives together. You are young and apparently affluent. Stop except for Christopher Plummer, obviously isn't. Stop moaning. And there's also a part of me which just goes, okay, you're quirky and kooky and great. Now I need to leave because otherwise I will scream.